Rise and shine. 6 a.m. and your hand can't make it to the alarm clock before the voices in your head start telling you that it's too early, too dark, and too cold to get out of bed. Aching muscles lie still in rebellion, pretending not to hear your brain commanding them to move. A legion of voices are shouting their unanimous permission for you to hit the snooze button and go back to dreamland. But you didn't ask their opinion. The voice you've chosen to listen to is one of defiance. A voice that says there was a reason you set that alarm in the first place. So sit up, put your feet on the floor, and don't look back, because we've got work to do. Welcome to the grind. For what is each day but a series of conflicts between the right way and the easy way? 10,000 streams fan out like a river delta before you, each one promising the path of least resistance. Thing is, you're headed upstream. And when you make that choice, when you decide to turn your back on what's comfortable and safe and what some would call common sense, well, that's day one. From there, it only gets tougher. So just make sure this is something you want, because the easy way out will always be there, ready to wash you away. All you have to do is pick up your feet. But you aren't going to, are you? With each step comes the decision to take another. You're on your way now, but this is no time to dwell on how far you've come. You're in a fight against an opponent you can't see, but oh, you can feel him on your heels, can't you? Feel him breathing down your neck. You know what that is? That's you. Your fears, your doubts, and insecurities all lined up like a firing squad, ready to shoot you out of the sky. But don't lose heart. While they're not easily defeated, they are far from invincible. Remember, this is the grind, the battle royale between you and your mind, your body, and the devil on your shoulder who's telling you that this is just a game. This is just a waste of time. Your opponents are stronger than you. Drown out the voice of uncertainty with the sound of your own heartbeat. Burn away your self-doubt with a fire lit beneath you. Remember what we're fighting for, and never forget that momentum's a cruel mistress. She can turn on a dime with the smallest mistake. She is ever searching for the weak place in your armor, that one tiny thing you forgot to prepare for. So as long as the devil is hiding the details, the question remains, is that all you got? Are you sure? And when the answer is yes, when you've done all you can to prepare yourself for battle, then it's time to go forth and boldly face your enemy, the enemy within. Only now you must take that fight into the open, into hostile territory. You're a lion in a field of lions, all hunting the same elusive prey with a desperate starvation that says victory is the only thing that can keep you alive. So believe that voice that says you can run a little faster, and you can throw a little harder, and that for you, the laws of physics are merely a suggestion. Luck is the last dying wish of those who want to believe that winning can happen by accident. Sweat, on the other hand, is for those who know it's a choice. So decide now, because destiny waits for no man. And when your time comes and 1,000 different voices are trying to tell you you're not ready for it, listen instead to that lone voice of dissent. The one that says you are ready, you are prepared. It's all up to you now. So rise and shine.
The laws of physics are just a suggestion. Welcome to Cold War Radio Live, ladies and gentlemen, on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the city of Pittsburgh and just west of Murmansk, Russia, with a Swedish and Finnish buffer. Let's try to tune in Norway. Radio Norway, come in, please.
Good evening, Hutch, and good evening to our lovely audience. It's actually December 12th here, only 12 days till Christmas, and I mean, time is passing so fast. It's you get tunnel vision sometimes. I
agree. We're going to get our first taste of snow here tonight, I think. We've had a little, but just a dusting. We'll see how that goes. Follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. You can catch the show on Blueberry, Roku, YouTube. Cold War Radio is a proud iHeartRadio program. You can catch it on the 405 Media and the Cold War Radio app on both sides of the aisle on the iPhone and Android side. The email is hutch@steelcityresistance.com, and the Cold War Radio patron hotline 412-567-1460. Chat room is up on Spreaker. Please go to steelcityresistance.com, where you can catch the show notes, links, and most importantly, become a Cold War Radio patron on the right hand margin. If you want to send mail, it's Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15226. We've got an exciting show for you tonight, especially if you caught Thursday night's show. And if you didn't, you can go back and catch up after this program. But hopefully everything works out, and we will have a guest on later that I was determined to try to find, and I was successful at that. It's going to be a very interesting program, and hopefully we can get some of your input, because what the show's basically about, it's a gentleman from Michigan that has been tracking the refugee status and what's going on in different cities in his state. And I would be curious and love to hear from you after he comes on, talk to him about what's going on in your area, if there's any Islamic activity in your area. There was some Islamic activity in New York City today, Norway.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just quickly say for people, and I know Wayne Dupree is listening, I'm sorry, brother, but we had to skip the Deep State episode number 2, Edward Snowden, that we were going to do today because we got this fantastic interview. But that's right, Hutch. A guy in New York blew his gonads off, and it didn't even make it to all the virgins in heaven. But yeah, there was another terrorist attack in New York today, and of course Bill de Blasio, the Sadiq Khan of New York City, he was quickly out smoothing things over, but this bomb blast injured 4 people, and luckily nobody was killed. But it was rush hour, and in some of the busiest areas of New York, so it could have been much worse.
Absolutely, and I can't believe I didn't say that. We did advertise the Deep State, but as you know, ladies and gentlemen, this show sometimes has to run with current events and opportunity. And whenever I get a subject matter expert on a subject like this, it always supersedes everything else. It's been like that ever since the show started, and most shows are like that. I mean, it's just the way it goes. You got to take the opportunity when it's there. And I've been this guy's really good, and he's part of a bunch of organizations that are too that we'll talk about. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, your weekly Jihad report for December 2nd through the 8th, 29. Jihad attacks, 327 killed, 190 injured, 2 suicide blasts in 10 countries. The religion of peace, atrocity of the week. In Pakistan, students machine gunned at their university. Other recent misunderstandings of Islam. On the 11th, in the United States, a man from Bangladesh tries to blow himself up at a bus terminal. On the 8th, in Afghanistan, an imam is blown up inside his mosque by religion of peace rivals. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, ADF Islamists attack a UN base, killing 14. On the 5th, in Iraq, a Mujahideen bomb makes quick work of a man, his wife, and their 4 children. On the 5th, in Pakistan, a half-dozen civilians at a bazaar are obliterated by jihadi shrapnel. And on the 5th, finally, in Syria, the Islamic State bombs a bus carrying university students, killing 8. The religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
So tomorrow, Norway, the election in Alabama, a very important election, and I think if there's not too much shenanigans, Judge Roy Moore should be successful.
Yeah, I hope so. And a vote for Roy Moore is a vote for life. He's pro-life, and Jones there, he is definitely anti-life, I would say. So and you know, the polls, although I don't put much trust in polls, but the polls actually for the past week has been very positive in favor of Roy Moore. So I think he's going to pull it off, and Donald Trump also supports him. So that's a no-brainer, I would say.
You know, the thing that is a little stunning is the Fox News poll that has Moore behind, and they did that early on. I mean, they've said that I called him out on it 3 weeks ago when every other poll was having it. Moore was pulling away, and they had him down by 7. And I saw a poll today, a report on a poll that was like, WTF, Fox, what's going on here? You know, and it goes back to Murdoch, and you know, they just don't like Trump. It's just I've never seen such derangement syndrome across so many different spectrums. I don't know what they're afraid of. He hasn't done anything that wasn't excellent so far.
Absolutely, and you're so right. It's the Trump derangement syndrome, and it's horrible to see. But I watched I think it was November 22nd when Roy Moore's campaign team was addressing the accusations against this Senate candidate, and Ben Dupree, Stan Cook, and Dean Young, they made a really solid case that this was actually a hit job on Roy Moore, and when you look at Mitch McConnell, he spent $32 million trying to stop Roy Moore. That's an abomination in my optics.
Well, it just shows you that it's the ruling class. They have no desire to win, no desire to govern successfully for the American people. They're their own people. I mean, it reminds me of the English aristocracy. Standing on the beach watching the ships getting blown up, and the women saying, "Oh, look at the fireworks." It's ridiculous. You know, these people are so disconnected from
standing on the beach watching.
And this has to be Mr. Manasseri.
Yeah, this is Dick Manasseri. It is.
Manasseri, I'm sorry, Dick. I just did something.
Yeah.
I have to reconnect with my co-host because of the way Skype just acted, but I will do that momentarily. And just give me 1 second here, and we will do that. Okay, here we go. Now we will see if we can get Norway in here. And he probably... we're going to get telephone with bells and everything.
Yeah, hi, this is Dick.
Hi, Dick. Norway, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I had to do that. I had to disconnect the call to take the other call, but this happens. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the mix-up there. This happens every now and then. Live radio, you got to do what you have to do. But live on the line with us, we have Mr. Dick Manasseri from the Refugee Resettlement Monitor, Michigan, and several other organizations, sir. Are there any other organizations you'd like to call out? There was I saw you on the United West and other areas, but I'll give it to you and let you describe them yourself.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to speak to you, Hutch, and your co-host and your listeners. Yeah, this started out as a refugee resettlement focus. We have another name for that. It's also called SecureMichigan.org. It's a little easier to remember. SecureMichigan.org is a website. And we got involved just being aware that Michigan was getting a whole lot of refugees, and it's a legal program, and nobody really seemed to know what was going on. There was an awful lot of secrecy, so we got involved in that. But I want to kind of jump forward. We're now recognizing that the refugee resettlement program is certainly discussable. We kept track of the numbers. We've made 65 presentations around the state of Michigan. And to be perfectly honest, not a whole lot's changed. The flow this year is down. But we already have, in the state of Michigan, through legal and illegal immigration, enough people who wake up every day and live under a different rule of law. They live under Sharia Islamic law. And so we're also focused on something called Sharia Crime Stoppers, because Here in Michigan, we've got an FGM case, female genital mutilation. We have honor killing. 15-year-old boy threw his mom off a balcony, and she's dead. And that's basically an honor killing, not a just a domestic violence situation. And we have an Uber driver who is a Sharia compliant man, and whether you're in the Middle East or in America, if you're Sharia compliant, you think women are property. And so if a woman is not covered and she gets in your cab, you feel that you have every right to sexually assault and rape her, and so we have an indictment there. So we have a critical mass of people who came here over a period of 40 or 50 years, have had children. We have 140 mosques. We just have enough people already here that people have labeled us as a collection of Shariavilles, and we're concerned about the crime that is existing American law, constitutional and state law, that is violated every day because people want to live and are living in public or in their homes according to Sharia, which is largely criminal. About 85% of Sharia has nothing to do with religion. The 15% that is covered by talks about prayer and fasting and celebrating holy days, etc. That is religious. That is protected under the First Amendment. But the other 85% of Sharia is, in fact, behavior which is criminal according to the American Constitution and state law. And we're concerned that the law enforcement people have backed away based on the leadership in Washington in 2011 and 2012. Training on Sharia and Jihad and honor violence was removed because the Muslim Brotherhood thought it was offensive, and the administration, the DHS and FBI, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, all of them removed their training. And so now we have 5 years of local law enforcement who don't understand Sharia and don't know how to use the American justice system when the crime is a crime that is legal under Sharia but a violation of law.
Now, I want to talk about real quick. I want to get back to that too. But the way we found you was we did a story on a story that was a couple years old, but it was still intriguing. Called Shariaville, USA: Cities Surrender to Islam, from WorldNet Daily, and that's how I found out about you. I had seen the United West before, but let me just play a quick clip about Sterling Heights, and I want to go there for a minute.
Over here, we don't hate Muslim people. Never we hate them. But you don't like mosque over here.
Mosque leaders told 7 Action News they would easily consider downsizing the 20,500 square foot building, some calling excessive, with large towers and a dome in a residential area. One religious leader says this obvious division is sending the wrong message.
Sad to say that they are sending a very happy message to ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other criminals who are against our country and against Islam and Christianity and moral values.
The mayor of Sterling Heights issued a statement tonight saying this decision was based on objective land criteria, not religious beliefs. He went on to say tonight, quote, Sterling Heights has a solid reputation for inclusiveness and tolerance reflected in a wide variety of places of worship across the city. Mosque leaders say they offered to revise their plan, but of course that did not work. They say this fight is far from over. For now, we're live in Sterling Heights. Aaron Baskerville, 7 Action News.
Thank you, Aaron.
And the women in the background you heard were Chaldean Christians that live there, that are Christians from the Middle East. And we had a guest on the show one time, a Christian from that area. And if you're still listening to the show, I'd like to get in touch with me. I'd like you to bring us an update. But unfortunately, Stacy has an update just in the last 2 years. That was 2015. Where are we now, Stacy?
So what's occurred is the mosque is going to be built in Sterling Heights after the city reached an agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice and the American Islamic Community Center, which had sued this city after it rejected the center's plans. Attorneys for the AICC.
So this is This is what they're expert at, Dick. They, the government speaks and then they sue them. I mean, I think they have special segments of the community that are just expert at this because they do it all over the country.
No, there is a definite model. So CARE, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, CARE in Michigan is extremely powerful. They've done this repeatedly. So they did it in a little town called Pittsfield, and they went and got the Justice Department to sue the city, along with the people who wanted to build the mosque. The mosque in Pittsfield and Sterling Heights were both rejected based on standard planning commission rules, but the mosque and the Department of Justice both sued Pittsfield, both sued Sterling Heights. In the case of Pittsfield, Michigan, which is about 40 miles west of Sterling Heights, settlement pushed by the Department of Justice required for the city to pay $1.7 million because they did something wrong. The $1.7 million went to the people building the mosque. So this is a suspicious situation because the mosque proposal in Sterling Heights. By the way, Sterling Heights has been a recipient of refugee flows for a long, long time and has significant concentrations of Chaldean and Assyrian Christians in Sterling Heights. There are already 2 mosques in Sterling Heights, and the third mosque that we're talking about was going to be right in the residential neighborhood where the Chaldean community has settled. So this is a rebuilding of the tension in the Middle East right here in Michigan. The point I'm making is that the mosque proposal was flawed from the beginning. It's almost like they intentionally wanted to lose so that they could then turn around, sue the city, and get the Department of Justice to come in and sue. And so that's exactly what happened. So instead of just getting a mosque, they got a settlement from the city that gave them $350,000 from of a co-payment to the mosque builder, and then the municipal insurance company that supports the city had to come up with an undisclosed confidential amount of money, which could have been $1 or $2 million. In addition, paid by the insurance company, which will certainly increase the rates, premiums for the city. So here, it's not, they want to get turned down so that they can come back and use the Department of Justice, very sadly, and their own lawfare mentality to get the city to pay for the mosque.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get to Norway in just a second, but I'd just like to get, while we're on this subject, I'd like to get an update on Hamtramck. A lot of people don't realize that the city council and Hamtramck is Muslim majority. The top 3 vote getters were Muslim. 2 were incumbents, Imam Mia and Abu Musa, and the third, Saad al-Masmari, is a 28-year-old college student who emigrated to the United States in 2009 and became a citizen in 2011. How's that going in Hamtramck?
Well, again, I think Hamtramck, I think you have a picture of Hamtramck. The mural that you're showing on your website is Hamtramck.
That's right.
So Hamtramck, you can see in that picture, if somebody's got it up, there's 2 women that are covered. Actually, I take that back. Let me take a look at that picture. That's a small person and a big person. By the way, we don't know if those are women. And one of the points of interest in Michigan is you sometimes see a really big person covered head to toe, and you do not know whether that's a man or a woman. And of course, if you are in any way worried about crime, that's a concern for just in general for people to be completely covered. So Hamtramck is a city, as you said, with a majority of city council members who are, we'll just call them people who practice Sharia, because to me, it's more important to talk about Sharia and the political system and the behavior that comes out of that. But yes, they're Islamic folks, and the challenge there is that. By the way, I'll just give your listeners, if they haven't already, they might find information about Hamtramck and about some of our own work in 2 different books. One of them is called Stealth Invasion by Leo Holman. Leo actually invented the word Shariaville, and in his article that you referred to, but his whole book is about Shariavilles in the United States and the stealth invasion. The other book is more recent. It's called No-Go Zones, and it's by a Breitbart editor named Rahim Kassam, and he compares Hamtramck and the other Shariavilles in Michigan to the notorious no-go zones in the UK, in Brussels, I guess Sweden. I think it's called Malmo, Sweden. Your co-host would be very familiar with that. So we have no-go zones in Michigan that are recognized by an international author that are comparable to what's happening in Europe, where there are no-go zones. And that's part of the concern that we have significant portions of the state of Michigan with 40 and 50 years of Middle East migration that are, in fact, identified by people who are experts on the subject as Sharia laws. And Hamtramck is one of them.
Norway.
Yeah, good evening, Dick. It's a real pleasure talking with you. And I work under the pseudonym Norway simply because I have a death threat hanging over my head after speaking out against Sharia and against Islam. So, but I have a question. You said you live in Rochester Hills. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, I do.
Yeah. And we've heard stories about Hamtramck, Dearborn, Sterling Heights, like we heard in this sound clip. Warren, Madison Heights, and Detroit. And is your perception that this situation is bad in the heavily populated areas, or do you find this saturation throughout the entire states?
Certainly. Well, it's interesting. I live in Rochester Hills, which is about 10 or 15 miles from the cities that you've mentioned. On the other hand, just within the last 3 months, it is not uncommon in our town. If you go to the Trader Joe's to shop, you will see covered women. There are covered women who walk past my house, and so the answer to the question is, it is bubbling over into other areas. There are other parts of the state where the refugee issue is, even in rural areas, is a point of concern, and the Sharia compliant folks are typically in southeast Michigan. So there's different groups. There's been 40 years of immigration from places like Syria, where the difference between us and Minnesota, for example, is that in Minnesota they've been really bringing in over 100,000 Somalis, and they put the Somalis to work in factories, and that's pretty much their life. They're almost kind of like indentured servants because they get their cheap labor, so they're endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce, the food processing industry. In Michigan, it's been 40 or 50 years of Syrian, Iraq, Sharia-compliant people, and they tend to be medical doctors. So they're here on a higher level. They're trained and educated. They become members of the community. They have second and third generations. Some of their children are doctors, but they're still practicing Sharia. They're still the leadership of the mosques. And so we have about 70, 75 mosques in southeast Michigan. So it's very dense here. In other parts of the state, it's not quite as dense, but it's certainly growing. And the point I want to kind of make, let's go back and connect. By the way, I understand that you use the word Norway, and I didn't do that early enough. I should have. We, the group that I'm a part of, Secure Michigan, which is not a large group, we've been identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center officially as an anti-Muslim hate group. And because of that designation, we get unsolicited phone calls. We get people to call the venues where we meet to try to get the venue to cancel us. We've had people protest our meetings inside, and then outside, and then inside the meetings. We've actually had a situation where we're making a presentation on Sharia and women, just in a local area with a women's club, and 3 women who were covered, who traveled an hour and a half from Dearborn, made their way, found our meeting, and came into the meeting. So I'm just saying, we have not had fatwa or death threats the way you have, but we have found greater attention and intensity. 2 things. There's an article yesterday in the Detroit News about all the hate crime, all the hate groups in Michigan, and so we are frequently called out. And my comment is, we're not anti-Muslim at all. Every individual Muslim is a human being. We're anti-Sharia, and Sharia as a political system is very, very much worthy of people learning about it and taking a position on Sharia. So I understand your situation, and I commiserate with you. We're not quite there yet, but we have certainly gotten a lot more attention since we were identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and again in the newspaper over the weekend. The heavy-duty article about all the hate in Michigan, which is really unfortunate. It's all part of the Muslim Brotherhood victimization approach. So things are developing rapidly in Michigan, and I guess one of the things that Michigan can do, and we try to do, is let the rest of the country know what's going on, so that even if they're not as advanced it's really a fundamental transformation, as Barack Obama talked about. It happens, and I know where I was going. I apologize. I'm rambling a little bit. Let me know. Here's an interesting thing about Hamtramck. Hamtramck has a community of Bangladesh Sunni Muslims, and the gentleman in New York who tried to blow himself up today was in fact a Bangladesh person. The reason it's significant is he was here on secondary migration, which means he was brought in because a family member was brought in. And so I want to share with you that we have no knowledge in Michigan, for example, of all the people that come to Michigan who started out somewhere else. And so Refugee Resettlement keeps track of first arrivals, but they have no way to keep track of secondary migration. And secondary migration is what brought the perpetrator of the crime in New York this morning. It was through secondary migration, which is just kind of a big secret.
I'm sure you're familiar with Ann Corcoran and her excellent book or booklet on the refugee resettlement. Hijra is the title. And
yes.
And another publication I would warmly recommend is Sharia in American Courts, and you can find those publications over at the Center for Security Policy. I have and this is perhaps a quite basic question, because we have, I would claim, some of the smartest audience out there. But I wonder if you could quickly run through what is Sharia or Islamic law, and where does it originate from?
Well, it's basically the codification of the way Muhammad lived. So if Muhammad is presented as the perfect man, and he did these things, there was a way to legitimize and codify them. And so, for example, under Sharia law, a man can take a wife at the age of 9 or younger. So Muhammad took a wife, Aisha, at the age of 6, consummated the marriage at 9. And so that's okay in Sharia, because that's what Muhammad did. Sharia law basically it says that women are inferior to men, and women are property. So under Sharia, and again, this is the way it was back in the 620, 630 when Muhammad was alive. So a man has a father, has a daughter. Well, the daughter is property. That property eventually can be transferred to another man who would be her husband. That could be when she's 9 or 12 or 15. The man could be, at any age, including, some could be 65 years old. That marriage is a transaction of a piece of property being transferred from the father to the husband. And so that has all kinds of ramifications. A woman who is the property of her husband, if in fact she does something which is upsets the husband, let's say in America, I'll go back to the honor violence case. In America, a woman who is practicing Sharia begins to learn about America, and she may want to be somewhat American. And one of the cases that happens is, so in the case we're dealing with, she actually decided to divorce the Sharia-compliant father. 3 children in the family. The father convinced the 15-year-old boy that the mother is bringing dishonor to the family, and therefore she appears underneath a balcony dead. The son was just indicted this week. The story changed 3 times. The point I'm making is it is behavior, the honor of the family makes it okay for, let's say, in a different case, a father sees a 15-year-old daughter become westernized in America. Well, the father and the mother can kill the daughter according to Sharia, and there's no, that's okay. There's no sanction against the mother or the father under Sharia if, in order to restore the honor of the family and therefore the Islamic community, and therefore, by the way, the imam in the mosque that they're all associated with. So it's okay for a father and a mother to kill a young daughter because she's brought some shame to the family. That shame is typically not a sexual misbehavior. That typically is just becoming more westernized, having friends that are not Sharia compliant, perhaps listening to music. And so that is okay under Sharia. FGM is okay under Sharia. So it's basically a 7th century way to live in a tribal community where men are supreme, have supremacy over women. That's the problem. It's a problem in the Middle East because we think people should be free, but it's a major problem when the people move to America, to Michigan or Pennsylvania, and they continue to live. And why do they continue to live under Sharia when they come here? Well, one of the reasons is their imam is all-powerful here in America because these people don't speak English, they don't understand what's going on here, and they are committed, typically when they come, to a local mosque, and mosques continue with the doors closed without any surveillance to discuss Sharia. Women are not allowed in some of the mosques to come into the building in the same door as men. Typically in a prayer room, the women are in the back and the men are in the front. And so there's if a woman is raped under Sharia, unless she can produce 4 witnesses that can testify that she was raped, she is perceived to be the perpetrator of the crime.
Now that hits on a note that I'd like to talk about, because right now we're talking about all within the Muslim community, but let's talk about the infidels that live in Michigan. I wonder, has your organization studied any of the crime statistics and specifically the rape statistics in these areas that are more leaning Sharia?
Well, that's a great point. Sharia affects non-Muslim, non-believing people who are not Sharia are affected by Sharia. So, for example, and I think Norway is very familiar with the significant increases in the amount of rape in Sweden. I'm going to guess in Norway, certainly in Germany and other cases. In Michigan, the problem is you would be hard-pressed to get statistics. So we know of individual cases and individual indictments. So we have the situation where a man, if a woman wakes up, puts on her Western clothes and goes, normal clothes and goes to the mall, that's great. But if there's a covered woman in the mall, since these covered women are not typically by themselves, that means there's a man who is associated with the covered woman as a piece of property, and therefore that man, according to Sharia, there's no sanction against him sexually harassing the women in the mall who are not covered. So when the women are not covered and they're in the presence of a covered woman, they need to understand that they've become a target for sexual harassment and rape, and that's okay under Sharia. That's not a crime under Sharia. Of course, it's a crime in America. Your question about statistics is a very difficult one to answer because jurisdictions do not keep track of crimes that are related. There are good statistics about a crime that's perpetrated by, let's say, a Sharia-compliant man. You don't get statistics on foreign-born or refugee status, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the police, law enforcement's aversion to even looking at that.
And your governor's not...
Norway is probably very familiar with that in Europe, where there have been years and years of sexual attacks that the police have not gotten involved with. So the answer is we don't have statistics, but we have individual incidents.
Rotherham comes to mind in the UK, but the governor of Michigan doesn't seem to be helping at all that much. But there's a new day coming. Let's listen to this political commercial.
Michigan is our home. We love it here, but there are some challenges that we have to face, and we have to do it now.
We, together, we must act. We cannot wait until our children are poisoned. We cannot wait until their dreams are crushed because we have shut down their schools. We cannot wait until nearly 1 million Michiganders lose their health care. We cannot wait until robots continue to take our jobs. We cannot wait until our young people go elsewhere looking for the kinds of economic opportunities we should have built them right here at home. We cannot wait until some Americans are told that they are less American than the rest of us and made to leave.
I'm Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed.
I'm the son of 2 proud Egyptian Americans. And I was raised by my father, Muhammad, and my stepmom, Jackie, from right here, Gratiot County, the heartland of Michigan. Together, this diverse, if highly unlikely American family, they taught me some things. They taught me about real leadership, and they taught me that real leaders are people who can stand firm against the powerful, stand strong with the weak, and stand humbly before God.
When I was appointed health commissioner in the city of Detroit, we immediately got to work. That meant providing glasses to every child who needed a pair, at school for free. We tested every single school for lead in the water. We stood up to corporate polluters who put their profits ahead of our lungs.
I'm doing this because I believe that the challenges that are faced by poor and working black people in places like Detroit and poor and working white people in places like Ishpeming and Big Rapids, those are the same challenges, and we have to solve them.
I am done with the notion that says that certain people can't be a part of the solution. We cannot wait. We have to be the change.
I am here today to announce my candidacy for governor of the state of Michigan.
Abdul El-Sayed, man, it's Barack Obama all over again. Does he have a chance?
Well, he is Barack Obama all over again. I think he has a very strong chance. And by the way, when we talk about Abdul, the first reaction in Michigan is people laugh. But we'll go through a little bit of a conversation now, and people start to wonder and worry. I mean, the conversation goes this way. So he is on tape saying that he's left of left. So he's going to be very attractive to the Bernie Sanders people in Michigan, and there's lots of them. He's going to be very popular with the Democratic Socialists of America. We have two senators, so statewide elections typically there's a massive turnout. The nurses union has endorsed him, which is kind of interesting. So strictly as a Democratic candidate, he's very attractive on all of the Democratic issues. Obviously, there's a woman named, well, maybe not so obviously, there's a woman named Linda Sarsour that I'm sure you both know of. She is a woman who has called for a jihad against Donald Trump. She was part of the Women's March. She had a secondary convention in Detroit where she invited the far-left women, victims of all kinds, to participate. She went to the ISNA convention and introduced Abdul in the audience and invited everybody from across the country at this national convention to send money to Abdul. So she's basically making Abdul a national candidate. We have access to 3 months worth of financial records that Abdul receives, public information. He's got over $1 million in the first 3 to 5 months. If you look at the donors, you will see large numbers of people with Middle Eastern names, and you will notice large numbers of medical personnel and people from all over the country that are already donating to Abdul. So my comment is, if you look at 1,400 years of conquest with the sword, starting with Muhammad, and then you read Ann Corcoran's book and you understand Hijra, which is the commitment. If you're a Sharia-compliant person, you certainly can do jihad, you can do mass murder, you can blow yourself up, and or you can migrate. And if you migrate, you are doing Muhammad and Allah's work by migrating and then taking over property in a foreign country that is not yet Islamic or Sharia compliant. You're doing a wonderful, wonderful thing. You've got the Muslim Brotherhood in Michigan so powerful that they would put this man forward. in a 1400-year context, the Muslim Brotherhood would not put a candidate forward who did not have a serious candidate. So that tells you that they've done enough work in Michigan and in the United States and infiltrated even Washington, D.C., so that and that they're getting money from all over the world, which is what the Muslim Brotherhood can do. So that money is going to pour in from all over the world into this campaign. There's two other components about why he can win. One of them is he wants to make Michigan a sanctuary state. Well, the current governor and Abdul have a very similar position on immigration, and that's because the Chamber of Commerce supports our current governor, but supports the same policy of cheap labor that Abdul wants. So there would be people from the Chamber of Commerce who would not be upset if Abdul won. But the last group, the most surprising group of all, is the large voting bloc in Michigan of people who identify as Roman Catholic.
What?
And the Pope would indicate that the positions on open borders that Abdul has are the same positions that the Pope has. The Pope would identify that, based on his own personal behavior, we should all work together, we should all coexist. Abdul could be a major way to get everybody together and coexist. So just like a lot of Catholics came out for Obama, I think in Michigan in particular, the interfaith movement that the Pope is very, very much in favor of. The Pope has shown favor to Islam, I'll put it that way. So it's very likely that many of the Catholics in Michigan, without understanding strategically what they're doing, could in fact vote Democratic and vote for Abdul. So he is a serious candidate.
We don't have too much time left. I've got some people in the chat room that want to know, what can they do to help? What can they do about this?
Well, we're trying to raise visibility on Abdul's candidacy. We have issued a questionnaire. If you go to securemichigan.org and you look at candidate vetting, we have a questionnaire that asks candidates, what do they know? Do they support Sharia? Do they support refugee resettlement? And other questions. Very few have answered them. Abdul has a questionnaire, never answered them. The establishment Republicans have not answered the questions. There are two candidates that have been very specific about about Sharia being incompatible with the Constitution. One is a libertarian named John Tater, and another is a Republican named Patrick Kolbeck. So Patrick Kolbeck, as a Republican, certainly is frankly more mainstream than the libertarian candidate, but is an underdog. But Patrick Kolbeck has a consistent record of understanding Sharia and taking positions with Secure Michigan. We've worked with him on legislation, etc. So Patrick Kolbeck is a person who will speak out. He's been endorsed by Sean Hannity, by the way. So people could learn more about Patrick Kolbeck. They could see his position on Sharia by going to securemichigan.org. If that's something they want to, if it's important for people in Pennsylvania or any other part of America to keep Michigan from becoming a sanctuary state, and certainly a state run by a Sharia-compliant candidate, then Patrick Kolbeck would deserve their attention. Let me stop for a second and make it really clear. It's not a hypothetical connection to the Muslim Brotherhood. His wife has a father. The father is a medical doctor. So Abdul's father-in-law is the past president of CARE Michigan and a current board member of CARE Michigan. Abdul was the vice president of Muslim Student Association at the University of Michigan.
Wow.
So we're not making this up. He is tightly connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's a candidate. So it is a program with national attention, and we hope that Hannity will have Kolbeck back on his program. He's endorsed him. People like Philip Haney, who is an expert on the Muslim Brotherhood, very much would support everything I'm saying in terms of the seriousness of this and why the rest of the country should follow the story. And if they think Kolbeck is worthy of support, they should support him.
Norway, any final questions?
Yeah, well, I find it very interesting, the thing you say about the Pope and the way Catholics are supporting this absolutely insane idea, and it was really an eye-opener when I read Catastrophic Failure, Blindfolding America in the Face of Jihad by Stephen Coughlin, I think his name is.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And what he showed the audience was going on behind the scenes in the Catholic community is absolutely shocking. And the real tragedy behind this is that, well, you mentioned that you have a lot of Bernie supporters that might be supporting might be supporting Abdul Rahman Al Sayed as a candidate. And the really sad thing is that all these people they are being used by CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood as pawns in a game they've been playing for 1400 years. And we saw this, we've seen this in Scandinavia, we've seen this in Norway. The socialists in Oslo, they put forth their own candidates, but they've been so much open border that the Muslim candidates, they're just crossing them off the lists in the elections, and the Social Democrats in Norway, they had several wake-up calls, but still they keep promoting these ideas. So this is going to bite themselves in the ass.
Well said. I agree with you. In fact, it's unfortunate because I was raised a Catholic. I went to 8 years of Jesuit high school and college, and so it's a difficult thing to say. But it turns out now that there's an incredible political aspect to the Roman Catholic Church. They are for open borders. They are for Agenda 2030. They are for liberation theology. They very much identify. For example, the Jesuits have had a major impact on the transformation of Central and South America. So the Jesuits have been very, very much in leadership positions in Central and South America, and you have a large number of communist countries there. It's unfortunate, but it needs to be identified. And our hope in Michigan is that women who are Catholic be so concerned about Sharia crime. That's why we have a presentation that we've done on women in Sharia. If people go to the United West and look at Sharia Crime Stoppers, that page, they'll see we have videos from presentations that we're making about women, average women who wake up in Michigan, need to understand their exposure to Sharia crime, including rape, for themselves and their daughters. So will these women wake up and be concerned about their own public safety and disregard what we believe will be encouragement they will get from their pastors, from their archbishop, to vote their conscience? If you had to vote for Obama to make history, how could you not vote for Abdul? Well, that's a scary proposition. So our goal is to try to reach individual women to think about their own safety.
It's like, do you really
Sharia is the governor?
Do you really want a clitorectomy? I don't think so. If it all comes out, you have to be ugly about it sometimes, but it is what it is. Dick, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program. We're both, Norway and I are both sitting here with reams of additional questions. Hopefully, you'll come back on the show sometime as a subject matter expert on this direction.
Well, it'd be an honor to be with you two gentlemen, and Stacy. You guys certainly know, you're very, very educated on all of this. You understand the history and the perspective, so sure, we'd love to be involved with you.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Dick Manasseri, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Norway, that was a good wrap-up. Have to have him on the show again, though. Just not enough time, as usual.
Absolutely, and with his background as a Catholic and with the understanding he has, it makes it all the more important that he's given an opportunity to convey this really, really important message.
Okay, Rocky, you know what time it is. No, I agree, and I just hope we can, again, have him back. I'd like to get some of the people in his circle. He mentioned some of them, Trento and the guy, the ex-DEA agent, former DEA agent, or NSA, DEA, NSA. I can't remember his name right now, but anyway, I'm sure we'll be able to get hold of them again. Always interesting shows. Final comments, sir. We're done.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic episode, and we should do more of this, because this is really one of the, if not the biggest threat to America as a nation, and I cannot stress enough how important it is for people to learn about Sharia. What is Sharia? Is it present in your community? And find allies to stop this.
And how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, I am at Norway for Trump, and that's Norway 4 with the number 4 on Twitter and Gab. And we'll be back on the 18th of December with a Christmas special and Hutch. Only positive news that day.
There you go. I want to thank everybody for listening live, and those of you that listen to the podcast. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour. God bless.
God bless.
Cold War Radio Eagle 1, Baltimore bound man. Destination We Are America Radio Studio. Rocky out.